Hey, so I actually did it. I sold my Phantom 4 Pro for the Mavic Air. I'm not exactly sure if that was a good decision or not, but I think so because traveling with a Phantom 4 Pro is really not that comfortable, even if the picture quality is just awesome from that. So let's get some test footage, and what I want to test is the actual picture settings, so the sharpness, the contrast and the saturations. I think that's very important for me, and I was searching for like 2 weeks for good videos to see a comparison of all the modes, and I didn't find anything good, so here's a video for that. Finished the first flight. Flight was awesome and it looked pretty good on the screen. I'm not sure, but I want to check out it now on the iPad already how it looks. It's my first time that I fly with an iPad already, and that with this small controller it feels a bit scary, like it falls down all the time, but it doesn't. Last time I had the impression, like last weekend when I tested it on another drone, but this wasn't really good because I just had 2 minutes to test it. And there I got a lot of noise inside there. That was not good, so I really hope that this time it's a bit better. I have to test it out later. I think it's not the best shots that I got here today, so I will try maybe tomorrow another day at another setting to see how it performs there. So I cannot see it right now on my iPad because the transmission signal is just 720p, but I think I can see a bit more on the computer later. And I'm right now at the CM-Fly airfield outside of Chiang Mai. It's a field from the shop in Chiang Mai, a DJI shop. And it's pretty cool here. He took me here last weekend already to see a bit of the Mavic Air and to test it out, see some of the footage. So that's a really good service here. So this is Dan, he's the owner of the flying field here and from the DJI shop in Chiang Mai. He has a very great service actually.
Buy drone at my shop. I have a warranty shop 1 year and teach use drone 3 or 4 hours. Yep.
Ah, that's cool. So you teach for 4 hours, like training. That's awesome. So yeah, definitely go to his shop. So 1 day later I reviewed the footage from yesterday and I wasn't that impressed. The best shot was actually the shot that I did at first with everything set to 000. So that seems to be the best. But of course the lighting conditions there were not very good, and also the surrounding. Like the rice fields are pretty problematic for such a small sensor to film, because you have all this grass there and there are so much details, and the farther you go away from that, the harder it gets for the sensor to recognize those details. And in the footage then later when I graded it, I saw a lot of noise there, especially with everything set to -3. It was not usable at all. Some clips that were okay, but it still had a lot of noise, where the clips where I set the contrast to -3 and the saturation, but the sharpness only to -1. So I want to test out a bit more now. Now it's a bit brighter, still not perfect, but much brighter than yesterday. And here are not rice fields, here are more like trees and a small waterfall here. So we'll test out how it performs here. Oh, you actually have to be a bit careful after landing the drone because the motors get really hot. They are not really burned, but it hurted a bit when I touched the motor, so careful for that. And yeah, flying around here, I really didn't like the sensors sometimes, because when I was flying between the trees and so on, then it were like more than enough space there to fly, but the sensors were always preventing me from doing that, so I need to adjust that a bit or just turn the sensors off. So I tested the Mavic Air now for 4 days. I think that should be enough. And I'm pretty impressed from that drone. It's so small, it's really like crazy. Like here's my bag. Everything fits inside there. The drone, my GH5, GoPro, like my, not Gorilla Pro, the Photo Pro or whatever it is here. And like my laptop, my iPad, like everything is just in this bag. So it's just amazing what this drone makes possible. But of course it has its downsides, and this is especially because the small sensor, you get more noise, and that's why it's so important to use the right picture settings. And yeah, so my conclusion here is to avoid contrast to -3 at all costs, because it really introduces a lot of noise. Of course, when you use software like Neat Video, then you can do that to get more dynamic range, but otherwise it would probably doesn't look that good anymore. So keep an eye for that. So the way how I will use the Mavic Air now will be that I have the saturation all the time to -3. I mean, you can use it to 0 or whatever setting you want. The saturation really doesn't destroy your footage. You get a very tiny bit more dynamic range when you set the saturation to -3. When you review the footage in Final Cut or Premiere or whatever, and you turn the histogram on and you play around with the saturation only, you leave everything else like it is. It's not just with the Mavic Air, it's with every camera. Then you can see that there's a slight increase or decrease with contrast there. So keeping the saturation also a bit lower, it just doesn't make so much of a difference, but a little bit. So that's why I keep it low, and it doesn't destroy your footage, it doesn't introduce noise as far as I reviewed it. And yeah, the contrast, I will usually keep it between 0 and -2. 0 is a good setting that works. It's for, I would say, for most of the footage that you want to film, it's good enough. But of course, sometimes, especially when there's a sunrise or sunset or something, and you need a bit more dynamic range, then it's definitely better to set it to -2 or even -3 if you use Neat Video like said before. Also, like -1 is still a good setting. So just play around with that, see what's best for the situation you're filming in. And yeah, the sharpness, I just leave it to 0 all the time, because it's not like the Mavic Air that just the trees become muddy or something. But when I set it lower, like -2 or -3, -1 is okay, you can do it, but it's still a bit, it feels like you have less detail in there. And but it was still like the footage didn't feel as crispy anymore. So I didn't like the footage when I set it to -2 or -3. That's why I don't do that anymore. I just keep the sharpness to 0, and that worked fine for me. Like in the past 3 days, I set it to other values at the first day, and I didn't like the footage, so I keep it like that now. So yeah, that's it. Just play around with the contrast. It's actually like with the Phantom 4 Pro similar, because on Phantom 4 Pro it was usually the case I always had my color profile the same, and I switched between de-Cinelike and de-Log. And now it's different. I only have one color profile, but I only switch between 0 contrast and -2. So pretty easy here. Just I prefer to know my settings, to keep it simple, because then I would have less problems when I shoot it. And when I set the whole camera or the whole drone all the time while I'm shooting, then of course I can make or produce more bad footage than if I know exactly, okay, these 2 settings and nothing else. What I also did when I did this test, I was always shooting as much to the right as possible. So for the people that doesn't know what shooting to the right means, it means that in the histogram, I looked at my histogram goes as far to the right as possible. And like I said before, I turned the zebra off. I usually don't do that, because the zebra is a nice indicator when you're actually overexposing, so I can see what part of the image is now really burnt out and what is still usable. But in that case, really, like I felt that when I turn the zebra off, I can see better on the Mavic Air how I expose than with the zebra. I know, like, the zebra is usually a good indicator, but in that case, like when I turn it off, I could really see that I can expose a bit more, so that I have better shadows, more details in the shadows, less noise, and still I had enough details in the highlights to work with. That's important for me. And that's why on that drone, I will not use the zebra anymore. Of course, it's up to you. when, let's say, you try it out for yourself, when the Zebra works good for you, then leave it like that. But for me, I would say without the Zebra goes better, at least on the Mavic Air. With a GH5 or my Phantom 4 Pro before, it's a complete different story. Yeah, so that's it here. I really love the Mavic Air, but I have one thing that I want to mention that I don't like it. I was just flying over the waterfall here, or not over the waterfall, but down here where the water is floating, and I didn't have GPS, and it was really hard for the drone to keep the position, and not in a like normal way that it goes a bit to the left or right like it's usually over water, but it changed its height, and not just a little bit but a lot. One time it nearly went into the water, so I actually had to press up to rescue it, otherwise like it was like 10 centimeters over the water, at least it looked like that from here, and I pressed up in the last moment, so otherwise I wouldn't have this drone anymore right now. So please DJI, fix that. It's like really that doesn't work. Like I never had this experience with a Phantom 4 Pro with a Mavic Pro before. Like over water, still if I didn't have any GPS, I was always at least safe that it doesn't go into the water. So yeah, this really needs to be improved. So if you watch this video, then in the future, if you fly over water and you don't have GPS, keep an eye for that, because the positioning system is really not that good, at least over water. on the mainland, it's not a problem at all. But also with GPS over the water, no problem at all. So if you fly over the ocean or something, everything should be fine. So that's my conclusion here. Like I said before, I absolutely love this drone, and I love that it becomes so easy for me now to travel with it, because now I always have my drone and my GH5 and everything with me. Before it was like I had my two bigger bags. Of course, I was still able to get them into the as carry-on luggage into the airplanes, but it was not good, because like when I just go for work into a cafe or so on, I don't want to carry a big bag with me, and I always used my gym bag, so that prevented me from having my GH5 with me, also my drone and stuff, of course. And with that drone now, I have like said before, this small bag here, and everything fits inside, so I always have my camera equipment with me. And that alone makes that I get a lot more footage and can produce more and better videos. So yeah, a little bit less quality, but therefore a lot more footage that I can choose from for my videos. So I hope you liked this video and I could help you with picture settings of the Mavic Air. It's really not that complicated. So I hope you liked it. If yes, then please hit the subscribe button now, and see you in the next video.